In this episode of Building the Brand, we follow the production of America's sports car, the Chevrolet Corvette. Now in its 6th generation, the much-loved Corvette's combination of sleek design and raw power continues to thrill drivers the world over. To build such a powerful and advanced sports car takes great manufacturing expertise. And it all happens in one factory in Kentucky. A combination of high-tech robotics and over 500 skilled workers transform a stack of raw metal and boxes of components into fully drivable high-performance sports cars in just 7 days. It's the making of an American icon, the Corvette. Over more than 5 decades, the Corvette has stamped its mark on American culture. Its latest incarnation is one of the most high-tech and high-performance American cars found on the road today. All new Corvettes are built in the General Motors plant near Bowling Green, Kentucky. This massive, highly mechanized factory spreads over 1 million square feet, all under one roof, the equivalent of 22 football fields. Here, up to 30,000 Corvettes are turned out each year. The process starts with the precision welding of each car's metal frame. The exterior panels that will attach to it are sprayed in the factory's paint shop. Frame and panels are united on the assembly line as the car takes shape. Hand-built by an efficiently organized army of workers. From the start of assembly to the finish, the Corvette travels on a network of conveyor systems stretching over 7 miles. The moving lines converge at the point where the car's pumped-up chassis and powertrain is merged with its fully trimmed-out body. With 7 different models and a choice of 10 colors, there are 70 basic options. But a whole host of other choices, such as interior trim, different leather seat colors, and wheel styles, mean that the permutations are almost endless. To build each Corvette, over 380 different suppliers provide over 2,000 separate parts. It is essential that each part is at the right place at the right time. It's a task of mind-boggling complexity that can only be achieved by a computerized system that sequences the delivery of each part to each specific workstation. The cars are not only built, but also tested on site and roll out the factory doors ready to be driven away by the customer. America's love affair with the Corvette began in 1953. Chevrolet produced what was basically a concept car, a 2-seater sports coupe to rival what the Europeans had to offer at the time. It tapped into the daring post-war spirit of the age, incorporating a body made entirely of the very latest material, fiberglass. Although production was low, the design was an instant success.
There was a lot of desire for a 2-seater sports car, and in a lot of ways Corvette created the American sports car culture.
The first Corvettes were small and stylish, aimed at women as much as men. But by 1957, things had started to change. A fuel-injected V8 engine was introduced with 4-speed manual gearbox, and the body shape started to look more like a race car.
The Corvette really has a special place in America, and movies, you know, the Route 66. The Corvette was always looked at as being the it car. They wanted to be something different. And when people buy a Corvette, they're buying more than just a car. In a lot of ways, they're buying into a legacy.
The Corvette evolved over the years into a series of stylish models, such as the ever-popular Stingray and the more muscular, high-performance cars of the last 30 years. Over 1.5 million Corvettes have been built since the first model rolled out nearly 60 years ago. The first stage of a Corvette's life takes shape in the body shop, where the critical parts of the metal frame are welded together. A dazzling array of sparks and flames light up the line as the 48 robots and a team of body shop workers perform a series of 1,500 welds to each car's frame.
We've got about 53 robots in the combined mixture. There's 842 spot welds or resistance welds. There's 493 individual gas metal arc welds.
The frames are made of either steel or aluminum, depending on the model. The Corvette's floor, dashboard, and powertrain, comprising engine and torque tube, will all fit into this skeleton. The bonded joints of the frame will need to support around 3,200 pounds when the completed Corvette is put through maneuvers at high speed. The key to the frame structure is a pair of strong tubular rails, which run the length of the car on both sides. Amazingly, these thick tubes were created not by heat, but powerful jets of water. The process known as hydroforming bent the metal into shape, eliminating corner joints that might weaken over time. The exact movements of the robots can repeat the same welding actions time after time, ensuring a uniform quality. The frame must be accurate down to the millimeter, or else the other car parts won't fit to it correctly. The more technical welds are done by human workers. They continuously assess the joint and make slight adjustments as they work. High-voltage electricity melts a welding wire within the gun. This is carefully directed at the parts to be fixed. As the heated metal from the gun cools, a solid metal joint is formed. The roof bow is secured to the rest of the frame. This will hold the fixed roof and rear windshield in place. Lock and hinge pillars are welded onto the frame. These will support the doors. Whereas most cars have steel panels fixed before the car is painted, the Corvette uses a different approach. While the car's metal skeletons are being welded together in the body shop, the painting process has already begun. The panels arrive at the factory with a protective base layer already applied. Rolls of ostrich feathers dust them before the panels get their layer of primer. From another team of robots.
In the prime booth, we actually have 4 robots that apply all of our primers. These 4 robots actually do everything from opening and closing the doors to spraying underneath parts to spraying the actual A surface that you'll see. Every robot in the paint shop is programmed. We do most of our programming on the computer now. So if the panel comes out, the robot comes out away from the panel. If the panel goes in, the robot goes in. Every point has to be calculated so that we don't get too much paint or too little paint. So we get a smooth application and a uniform application of the coating.
The air-atomized spray guns emit a fine cloud of paint. The programmed movements of the robot arms ensure a thorough and even layer.
Robots generally don't have bad days. They paint the same way. They're very consistent, and everything gets painted the same way every day. It's great for troubleshooting.
The paint shop is about 250,000 square feet, or about a quarter of the plant's size. The plant takes extreme measures to keep all dirt and dust out of the shop, where the car's exterior parts are painted. In the paint shop, the separate doors and panels of each car are painted before they are mounted to the car's frame. These panels, including the roofs, hoods, and fenders, are not made of metal, but lightweight composite materials, including carbon fiber. The super light body panels of the Corvette help to boost its speed and performance on the road. The Chevy Corvette is America's most famous high-performance road car. Today's models are more powerful and high-tech than ever. All Corvettes come out of one factory in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Here, the latest batch of vets have so far had their steel frames welded together by eagle-eyed workers and an army of mean-looking robots. And their panels have had their first coat of color. The newly painted lightweight composite panels are then sent through a giant oven. A temperature of 265 degrees Fahrenheit bakes the layer of paint on. Parts of the panels that don't need a full coverage of paint, such as the insides of the deck lids, are masked off with tape. A further base layer of color is added, and the panels are sent back through the oven. This takes away 90% of the moisture from the water-based paint, leaving it tough and long-lasting.
Each of our paint jobs on a Corvette is designed to last a minimum of 10 years, but they'll last longer than that. They're actually designed to withstand acid rain, bird droppings, even tree sap. It's a pretty hardy paint job, all in all.
More robots get to work applying a clear protective urethane coat. The spinning heads of the paint guns split the clear coat lacquer into a mist of tiny droplets.
They're spinning at about 35,000 RPM, and the paint is actually electrically charged. It's going to be attracted to the panels and the carrier because the panels actually have conductive prime. So we're using the panels and the carrier as a ground, attracting the electrically charged paint. So that's why you don't see a big cloud of paint. You don't see it like you did in some of the other booths in prime.
This ensures it's applied consistently. After the clear coat and one last trip through the oven, the painting is complete. But the work in the paint shop is not over yet.
Coming out of the oven, we're going to inspect every car, every panel, and we're going to look for any defect or discrepancy that might be in that panel because we want to ship a perfect car. So we have inspection people that are going to look for toward these defects and remove them.
We're looking for dirt that's in the paint, craters, pinholes, anything that the customer wouldn't like. We do our best to remove it and make it blemish-free. Once identified, we mark the defect, and then we take a sander, sand it out, and then we buff it. If I see a Corvette on the street, I like to go look at them, make sure that they're dirt-free, defect-free on the paint job. That's the first thing I look at is the paint work on the car, make sure it looks good.
The Corvette body panels have spent around 4 days in the paint shop, traveling a mile on the conveyor system. While this has been going on, the Corvette's complicated instrument panel has been built. The dash is fixed to the metal frame that will eventually hold the front windshield. This whole front interior panel is then bolted to the rest of the car's steel frame. This basic car structure makes its way to the trim shop. Here, the Corvette begins its transformation. The ever-moving cars pass through different workstations that are marked out on the floor. In each of these so-called footprints, a team of workers performs a specific job or installation.
The car travels through what we call footprints, and within each footprint, the operators have all the tools that they need to complete their job. They have all the materials and the material presented to them, and any parts that they would put on the car are delivered to them in a sequence manner so they can grab them and easily install them to the vehicle.
Gradually, the frame starts to transform into a car. The tail lights and rear quarter panels are attached. The trunk lids, carpeting, and seats are installed.
Wicked Inventions, Wednesday nights at 9:50 on Discovery Science. Biologist Liz Bonnen and geologist Martin Pepper time travel.
Even with the technology we have today, we're still powerless against something like this.
Uncovering what makes our world tick and tick over in the future. How the Earth works. Monday nights at 9 on Discovery Science.
At the General Motors plant in Bowling Green, Kentucky, the latest batch of Chevrolet Corvettes are getting trimmed out. The cars have been painted and inspected, and teams on the assembly line are getting down to the nuts and bolts, turning the basic frames into fully fledged sports cars. There are no robots down here. It's all done by good old-fashioned mechanical skilled labor.
For example, a quarter panel. You know, we may put that on with a series of screws, just like regular torch bit screw that you'd have maybe in your house or your garage. But if you go further down the line where we install seats, those are put in with nuts and bolts, and they're all torque controlled with electronic torque control guns that are monitored, so we can make sure that we have the precise amount of torque applied to the seats.
The famous checkered flag badge is clipped into place, a reference to the Corvette's long and illustrious history on the racetrack. On a nearby sub-assembly line, the doors are prepared. Cabling for the stereo system must be fed through before the interior panels are fitted. Special hoists are used for aligning and anchoring the doors.
Once they attach the doors, they have gauges that they verify that all the gaps, that all the fits, all the flushings are perfect. And they make any adjustments as necessary, because each car may build just a little bit different. So they want to make sure that each car is to the customer's expectation.
Next up, the installation of the Corvette's classic teardrop rear window. It not only gives the car its cool and distinctive contour, but also helps it be more aerodynamic on the road. The front windshield is also dropped into place. Workers guide the hydraulic arm, which takes the weight of the heavy glass. The window is sealed with a urethane cement that will keep it watertight and fixed firmly in place. When it comes to installing the roof, there's 3 different approaches.
If we have a convertible top, that convertible would have been installed in the very beginning of the first part of trim. And we have a hoist that we use to guide that into place, and then we would secure it. If it's a Z06 top, that's a fixed roof, which means it doesn't come out. So that one is actually bolted in such a manner that it can't come out. And the reason for that is it adds structural rigidity to the vehicle, so it helps strengthen the vehicle. On a regular target top, we install it to the vehicle and secure the fasteners that hold it into place, but the customer can remove that roof panel to take it out and give them a target top.
So-called hot drops are points on the assembly line where power can be supplied to the electrical system of the partially built cars.
We have a series of hot drops. We call them throughout the plant, and they're along the conveyor system. And what we can do is hook those up to the vehicle, and it actually provides auxiliary power to the car. So while the car doesn't have its own power, we can give it power, and we can verify such things as seat function. We can check for radio functionality. All the electrical components we can check without having a battery hooked up to the car yet.
The white sheet attached to the front of each car is called the Build Manifest. This lets the workers in each station know exactly which components need to be installed. Everything from the wiring to the colored trim.
Virtually every vehicle is individual. We build every vehicle to a very specific order for a very specific customer. And so the number of options available to that customer are large. I don't want to say infinite, but they're pretty big. And so every vehicle is kind of a unique vehicle. Well, that means then that the sequencing task is very, very challenging.
The main computer running the factory will make sure that the right parts are supplied to the right bay at the right time.
Our processes and systems are set up such that when we introduce a vehicle into the uniframe area where we first begin to assemble the frame, we know exactly when that vehicle is going to arrive at every specific station, and we have the right material available at the right time in the right quantity for that vehicle. Take, for instance, if we had a red Grand Sport convertible. Materials delivery systems are sophisticated such to the point that every time that car comes into the station, the red doors are available, the red fenders are available, the red quarters. If it's a hardtop or a tonneau or a convertible, it has the right components there at the right time. I know where every vehicle is inside the entire system all the time. We'll have customers frequently call up and say, you know, how soon will my vehicle be done? We can tell them within about a plus or minus 5 minutes as to when that vehicle is going to come off the line.
Things are buzzing at the General Motors factory as the latest models of Chevrolet Corvette are getting built from the floor up. Down on the assembly line, the ever-moving cars had doors installed. Also, rear and front windshields sealed in place. One challenge for the workers is that a whole variety of Corvette models are being built on the same assembly line.
We make 4 different levels of Corvette. We build the base C6 in a coupe and a convertible. We build the Grand Sport in a coupe and a convertible. Then we build the Z06 in a coupe, and the ZR1, our flagship car, in a coupe as well. Now, in terms of horsepower, it goes up in horsepower, culminating in the ZR1, 638 horsepower. It's a rocket ship.
The thousands of car parts being delivered to each bay have been meticulously sequenced, making sure the right part is in the right place whenever it's needed. All incoming parts need to be transported promptly from the plant's receiving docks to the assembly line, so a constant flow of traffic moves through the plant at all times.
We have suppliers right next to our property who sequence all of our material. We give them the orders. We tell them what's coming in order, in sequence, and they put our seats or our tires or our wheels, all of that stuff in sequence so that when that car arrives in station, the right material is there.
Just like the Corvette itself, the factory is all about speed and efficiency. Team leaders throughout the plant, such as Betty Jo Wilson, have to make sure that the assembly line keeps moving and that the cars leave each section in perfect condition.
When it leaves me, it's supposed to be perfect. If there was to be an incident and it's not, I write it on the ticket so we can track that. And then I call the next group over and tell them if it's going to affect them or not. And then I follow that car from there on out. This line has to be going. If it's not going, we're not making any money here, and the products are not getting to the customers on time. So it's very critical this line stays rolling.
The progress of each workstation is constantly displayed on large light boards called andons. These not only show the production targets required for each day, but also how much has actually been produced. If any workstations are falling behind for any reason, it is quickly apparent on the board. Roaming managers keep tabs on the andons and can quickly spot a problem, help solve it, and keep the line moving. The trimmed-out cars continue on the conveyor to the chassis line. The cars are now moving high off the ground, allowing workers underneath. A pair of gas tanks are installed. Together, they will hold 18 gallons of fuel. Dual gas tanks allow the Corvette to have a more evenly distributed center of gravity, giving better handling and allowing for more trunk space. Next, the stainless steel tailpipes and mufflers are installed. The beating heart of each Corvette is, of course, its engine. And these ones are absolute brutes. The very latest motoring technology is used to provide muscle for the new C6 models, such as the smooth Grand Sport Coupe. Don't be fooled by its stylish lines and cool exterior. Concealed within is a pumping heart simply bursting with raw power, capable of propelling the car to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds.
We have 3 basic engines that come into us. They range from 430 horsepower upwards of 638 horsepower. Our top-of-the-line engine that we call the LS9 goes on the ZR1. That's the one that gets 638 horsepower, has 6.2-liter displacement. What really makes the car move is that it's turbocharged. And this is the car that'll go 205 miles per hour.
The aluminum block is manufactured at another plant, but must be dressed here in Kentucky before being installed.
At this particular time, you can see we put engine wire harness on it. So it's the wire connections that'll be part of the car. We'll end up putting the bell housing tube on it that allows us to hook up the torque tube in the transmission, and other components such as alternators will get added, water pumps, those type of things that would be basics for the engine.
At another bay, a team sets to work creating the powertrain. The torque tube is swung into place and bolted to the car's axle. A hoist called a tow veyor lowers the engine into place, the final all-important part of the powertrain. The drive shaft inside the torque tube will transfer the blistering power from the engine to the transmission that is situated at the rear of the car. Keeping the transmission at the rear, away from the engine, spreads out the weight more evenly. This gives the car better handling. The chassis of this awesome road rocket is now complete. Next up is an important moment in the life of any Corvette, the marriage between the chassis and the smooth, trimmed-out body. The entire sub-assembled chassis is hydraulically lifted from its conveyor platform, while the trimmed body is lowered towards it. The 2 separate conveyors are precisely timed so that the 2 meet with a millimeter's accuracy. 4 assemblers have just 6 minutes to secure them together.
We actually have to take 16 bolts, get them torqued down, and then they have to follow that up with electrical connections. Now, they're only doing about half a dozen electrical connections. Eventually, for the whole car, there's probably 100 different electrical connections. As you watch them, you'll notice it's pretty synchronized movement. You got 4 guys, 1 on each side of the corner of the car, and they really have to work together as a team. Otherwise, bad things can happen. Someone can get hurt.
Of course, due to the factory's high-tech sequencing process, the car's body will always be married to the correct chassis. Years of experience on the racetrack has helped Chevrolet develop the modern Corvette suspension. It combines comfort with aggressive road-hugging traction, equally at home on the highway or the racing circuit. In the General Motors factory in Bowling Green, Kentucky, 500 workers produce as many as 30,000 Corvettes a year. What began 60 years ago as a chic concept car in the European style has beefed up into the quintessential American muscle car. On the line, the Corvettes have just got their gears. The powertrain comprising torque tube, transmission, and engine. Nearing completion, they continue on their journey around the conveyor system. They're now lowered to near floor level again. This allows workers to attach the front fascia.
Front fascia is a little bit more difficult to put on. There's actually clips, a clip like you might use in your home where you put a picture frame on. That type of style, if you will, even though it's a little bit more robust than that. But you're actually clipping the front fascia to the frame, and then underneath you'll start putting the bolts. It's that way the actual, the securing of the front fascia, everything is hidden from the customer and you can't see it.
The high-intensity headlamps are fitted. These can emit 900 lumens of light. Next, the hood goes on. The car's structure and bodywork is almost complete. All that's left to add is the front fender. These are made of tough molded plastic. They were sprayed in the paint shop with the other panels. Only now will they be reunited. Using a special aligning joist, workers fix the foam into place and secure it. It must be perfectly straight for the paneling around it to fit. While they're being prepared, a thick layer of shock-absorbing foam is mounted below the hood. The fender itself is now locked into place, attaching to clips that are hidden out of sight. The Corvette now has its lean and mean-looking muzzle.
Depending on what the operation being done, the actual height of the vehicle or the chain will change. For example, right here we're at the wheel load, and it's about chest height. That allows the operator to take the wheel to the car and be able to assemble it.
The performance wheels and tires descend down a chute from an overhead conveyor to the operator on the plant floor. The wheels range from 18 to 20 inches in diameter and weigh around 25 pounds. To fix them in place, a multi-bolt Tommy gun is used. It tightens all 5 bolts at once.
Depending on the model you get, we have 3 different types of tires, and we actually have 4 different types of rims you can get. Tires come in 3 different sizes, so again, depending on the performance you're looking for, it takes a different type of tire wheel combination.
There are 4 types of wheels available on the Corvette, ranging from silver-painted aluminum to a bright chrome finish.
It's really a personal preference. Some people like painted rim look, they like the gray look. Some people like polished look, so they like a chrome type of look. So it's really an opportunity for individuals to personalize their vehicle a little bit.
The low-profile racing-style tires have a special run-flat capability. If a tire loses all pressure, it can still be driven for another 50 miles at up to 50 miles an hour. Also standard on every Corvette is a tire pressure monitoring system, which will give the driver plenty of warning if a tire is over or underinflated.
Right here, we're almost at the very end of the chassis, which is almost the very end of general assembly. You'll notice now we have the whole exterior of the car is completed. Tires are on, all the panels are on, the hoods. The only thing we have left after this is where we actually put the fluid in the car, gasoline, and we'll actually start the car.
The next stop on the assembly line is the fluid fill and start. Here, the car is filled with radiator fluid, windshield washer fluid, air conditioning refrigerant, and 3 gallons of fuel. The front fender gets its iconic Corvette badge. and the car's mechanical and electrical systems are tested. Inspectors use the bright fluorescent lighting to look for any blemishes on the paintwork, interior leather, and dash. If the car is not perfect, it will be taken off the line and fixed. If it looks spotless, it will be given a stamp of approval. The 6th generation Corvettes have a different look to most of their predecessors. On these new models, the headlamps are exposed, whereas the 2nd to 5th generation Corvettes have pop-up headlamps. With prices going from around $50,000 to $110,000, the Corvette is the most expensive car in the Chevrolet range. It's finally time to hear the thunder of that 6.2-liter engine. It takes just the touch of a button. This is perhaps the true birthplace of the car. It's even possible for customers who have pre-ordered a car to visit the factory and switch on its engine for the first time. For the latest speed demons in the Corvette range, it's very nearly the end of the line. They've had their hood, fender, and wheels bolted into place. They've been inspected and then started for the first time. Now, the finished Corvettes get a brief maiden voyage. But only as far as a special testing booth 30 feet away. Here, the cars will be precisely calibrated. First, the tire pressure is checked, and the wheels are aligned. With the tires pointing straight ahead, the steering wheel must be no more than a quarter inch off its dead center position. In the case of the headlamps, the beams must be perfectly focused. Over a range of 25 feet, they mustn't stray more than a quarter inch, or they'll need to be reset. In the next booth is where the DVT, or Dynamic Vehicle Test, takes place. The engine is put through its paces for 6 minutes, accelerating on sets of rollers to over 70 miles per hour.
The Dynamic Vehicle Test, DVT booth, basically tests all the electrical components of the car, the fuel system, the brakes, the anti-lock brakes, and the RPMs, and make sure the engine meets the acceleration points as stated per the programming inside the car itself. And it basically tests the car like it was on the highway, but never leaving the plant.
The exhaust from the running engine is drawn into floor vents and carried outside the building. This keeps the air quality within the plant clean and safe. During this stationary drive, the electrical components are tested, such as the tail lights and turn signals. Every button and switch in the car is flicked or pressed to make sure that all systems are go. In all, over 800 tests are conducted in just a few minutes. Every new Corvette is then driven into a water test station.
It basically drenches the car, and there's several jets that point from all different directions to simulate a severe rainstorm.
Not just any rainstorm, but an absolute monsoon. Water cascades over the car continuously for 2 minutes at the rate of 12 gallons per second.
And what that does, if there's any leak in that booth at all, we will take that in and examine it and find the root cause and correct it. But if the car leaks in that booth, there's something wrong with it. If the car does not leak, you will never see those types of harsh conditions in normal everyday driving or in the rain.
The doors of the water test booth open, allowing the still dripping Corvette to get its first taste of the outside world. There's one more important thing to do out here, the squeak and rattle test.
What
what we do is we take the car down the squeak and rattle track. What that does is basically simulate the harsh driving conditions that our customers might go through, and that's basically to listen for any abnormal noises that the customers might complain about. We have the driver that has to be tuned into a certain noise or a certain squeak, and getting folks tuned into that is the biggest challenge.
The Corvettes are now ready to hit the road. These 6 and 7 liter V8 monsters are certainly full of torque, up to 604 pounds of it, providing 638 horsepower. Is all that power necessary? Ask a Corvette owner. Since 1981, when Corvette production was moved to the factory at Bowling Green, workers here have built over 850,000 of them. It's certainly come a long way from the tiny convertible that started it all back in the 50s. Thanks to ever-evolving, innovative design, each new model attracts a new generation of fans. Not just those who drive it, but those who build it too. In the 7 days it takes to make a Corvette, each vehicle passes through the hands of over 300 workers. Welders, painters, installers, technicians, and testers.
I guess it's kind of a dream job, you know, everybody likes Corvettes, so.
It makes me proud to see Corvette. Sometimes I say, hey, I might have worked on that one.
These proud workers at the General Motors plant in Kentucky have been entrusted to build a much-loved American brand.
When I see a Corvette on the road, I think there's only one place in the world that we build Corvettes. It's right here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And the fact is that as we see any Corvette on the road anywhere, we know that we made it.
It's thanks to their work that the Chevrolet Corvette is set to roar into the future. It's truly America's sports car.
If you believe wild things belong to all of us, if their fate matters to you, if you think someone should protect them, hear this now. That someone is you. The desire to own something rare and unusual has become a death sentence for hundreds of millions of animals. Every year, people often unknowingly fuel the multi-billion-dollar illegal wildlife trade by buying items like these. You have the power to stop it. Ask before you buy to make sure your purchase doesn't harm endangered species. Be informed. Buy informed.
Biologist Liz Bonnen and geologist Martin Pepper time travel.
Even with the technology we have today, we're still powerless against something like this.
Uncovering what makes our world tick and tick over in the future. How the Earth works. Monday nights at 9 on Discovery Science. Did the Big Bang move faster than the speed of light? Could a rogue planet destroy the Earth? Is interstellar travel really possible? And will time itself come to an end? Prepare to explore every question under the sun and beyond. Come find out how the universe works. Monday nights at 8:10 on Discovery Science.